Welcome to Do What Matters Most. This is episode 8 in the series Great Leaders. All great leaders appear to be guided by a set of doctrines or principles that underlie the way they treat people and organize them. The 8 doctrines Dr. Scoresby describes in this episode can be implemented by anyone, and they have proven to make leadership more successful.
The quality of leadership is so important nowadays, partly because of political elections, partly because we're taking a look at what's going on in our families, in our church and school organizations, and in any endeavor to understand organizations or understand people, really. It is crucial to be able to take a look at the kind of leadership that exists. If you're going to invest in some company, for example, you wouldn't look at just the price of the stock currently. You'd want to make sure that you had taken a look at the management and the leadership of the organization, because in the end, that would determine whether or not your stock will grow. During my years of observing business leaders, church leaders, and school leaders, I've had the opportunity to make some assessments and some observations. And then I've read quite a bit as well about what other people have thought good leadership is. And in this series of great leaders, I want to describe the doctrines that great leaders use, which are the foundation for the choices they make and for the way they treat people. Leaders make decisions, they help others, and are guided by a core of essential practices. Well, then what is it that guides good leaders or great leaders and influences what they pay attention to and eventually do? These are the doctrines of leadership that great leaders depend on to determine where they give focus and determine how they treat people as they exert leadership. These doctrines have been suggested by author Dallas Merrill, and the 8 doctrines are the foundation for all successful leadership, in my opinion. I use the term doctrines because they impact human thought much like the profound truths of great religions, philosophies, and cultures. Learn them and study them in order to improve your abilities as a leader. I'm going to describe 8 in sequence. There's no priority because the first one's first. It's just that all 8 seem to be characteristic of great leaders. Number 1, find the right people and activate the freedom to choose. Leaders are good, great leaders are good at finding the right people to perform. Choosing someone who will not perform well will cost an organization more than the problems the wrong person will create. But even when the right person has been identified, a good leader will make certain that this person has freedom to choose and freedom to act. Human beings are the most intelligent of all creations and are uniquely and inherently free to choose. Even though some people may resist freedom and the responsibility that comes with it, the people who are right for any position will achieve more and sustain their performance better when their freedom is activated by those who lead them. Leaders who activate the freedom to choose will use these words, will you, rather than you will. Number 2, great leaders create a culture of discipline by increasing accountability and responsibility. Along with their option to choose, people have some measure of power in pursuing and achieving their goals, to act and not only be acted upon. Accountability and responsibility are greater when leaders involve those they lead in developing the means or methods of achieving and measuring the results. As it turns out, however, responsibility and accountability have another important function. It means that we create an entire culture of discipline, where people align their work and their time and their energy and effort and do it collectively in order to stay focused, to start, to persist, and complete what they're working on, and do so until they achieve goals that they may not have thought possible. So creating a culture of discipline, for example, turns out to be one of the chief characteristics of great leaders. Number 3, great leaders motivate and inspire by resolving to create and maintain high standards of performance. People generally have goals to preserve and enhance life, liberty, and their pursuit of happiness, but they are more motivated and inspired to achieve when their individual goals are linked to a leader's high standard of performance. Why is this? Well, because the power of motivation comes from hope and faith, literally, and hope and faith lie between the present and the future. How you get people to focus on that time dimension of their life is in part determined by whether or not they are goal setters and whether or not they also will set standards of performance when they work. So in an organization that has a culture of discipline, individuals will set daily goals for themselves. They will decide that there is a standard of performance, and their managers and leaders are teaching what that standard is, and all work toward that outcome. Doctrine number 4. Great leaders create teamwork so the power of leadership is shared with those who are led. The choices of one person are tempered by the choices of others, thereby restricting the ability to act unilaterally or to stop others from acting even when there is enough time and there is enough resources to share. Coercion, threat, or any other form of excessive control may temporarily move people to act, but this behavior will eventually diminish their willingness to achieve. Well, why is that? That is because humans have a natural tendency toward affinity, to belong. They also have a natural desire to achieve. Well, when they work in teams, as it turns out, if the teams can be created to work effectively, then those individuals on the team can do more than the same number of individuals working alone. Now, the reason this works, however, is that leadership, therefore, is shared with those who are led, and everybody gets what you call buy-in, or the old term empowerment. What it really means is that we believe we can achieve more if we get more minds involved collectively than just one or two. Doctrine number 5. Great leaders establish and teach vision and values to bring people together in a common cause. People voluntarily align themselves with others in order to increase the power to achieve their goals, when there is a possibility for all to agree on a common vision and strategy. Performance is accelerated when leaders take advantage of people's willingness to join with others in a common effort. Well, what this means is that leaders then are busy creating vision and then teaching it to other people and asking them to establish their own. What is it you would like to accomplish? If every manager in every organization or every supervisor or every leader in a church was asked by somebody, what is it you would like to see happen in the next 6 months or the next year? And they believed that whatever they decided would in fact be put into practice, we would discover that performance would go up unless it's already at an extraordinarily high level. It is important for us, therefore, to teach vision and to teach values. Values means honesty, integrity. It means kindness to others and respect and so on. Good leaders, great leaders, teach both vision and values and ask the people they lead to accommodate and create both. Doctrine 6. Great leaders base leadership on earned respect, integrity, and moral character. There's an interesting notion about where leadership comes from. Some people think that it's positions. If you hold a position, then you can be a leader. Some people think that it's given to them by somebody else who designates them as a leader. And some people just think they sort of have a right to be a leader and so on. But great leaders operate on the basis of earned the right to leadership and earn the respect, integrity, and moral character through their own actions. People follow those whose moral character they trust. It's as simple as that. And those they think will benefit their lives, and those who will not try to limit another person's power to choose and act. All achievement begins as a belief in leaders whose personal lives exemplify integrity. Therefore, great leaders are busy talking about honesty and integrity and consideration for others and respect and all sorts of things. Well, why? If you're a business, these are the forms of behavior that promote high-quality customer service or sales. If you're in a church organization, these are the forms of behavior that carry out the doctrines of the person that you worship. And these same qualities and characteristics are those that societies organize to protect themselves from each other. It's earned respect, earned integrity, and moral character. Doctrine number 7. Great leaders sustain efforts to transform people and organizations. Now, the word transform might be a little bothersome to you, but it's as simple as this. In order for growth to occur, somebody has to change, and it's usually the people who do the work. And so when we talk about innovation, for example, and people changing, we think, oh, we may not want to focus on that. But great leaders invite people to understand that innovation requires change or transformation, and they go about the process doing it in an ethical and kind way. They transform people and they transform organizations. Leaders, allies, and followers exchange power and influence as stewards of resources and opportunities. They transform their lives and circumstances so that all participants benefit. I can do this better. Somebody else said, well, I can do that better. And together, we make things more productive. Great leaders forthrightly identify personal and organizational changes that must be made to accomplish new levels of achievement, and then willingly change themselves. What this practically means is that every so often, every 6 months or every year, you take a look at the kinds of growth you'd like to make or see happening, or the great things that you want to see, and then ask yourself what changes need to be made in me as the leader and in other people in order to get that to occur. Great leaders tend to do this forthrightly and openly without springing it on somebody that creates more resistance than it's worth, and they communicate to people that the changes see are going to produce things which will benefit everybody. They sustain leaders to transform people and organization. Great leaders also find and develop other leaders to prepare for future growth. I want to repeat that. Doctrine 8. Great leaders find and develop other people to prepare for future growth. Great leaders, for example, should be preparing somebody to take their place through every organization. What are the qualities and characteristics that we could develop in people to sustain great leadership in this organization? Take a look at a family. Fathers and mothers could be teaching their children about family leadership. Church organizations could be teaching those who currently have less involved positions how to assume responsibility for more involved positions. Businesses, of course, ought to be busy trying to identify and prepare other leaders for future growth. Failure to do that means that when a change is needed or there's some condition, market-wise, for example, and you don't have the quality of leadership, then the type of growth that a businessman could achieve is missing. Leaders, great leaders, extend their influence by organizing and institutionalizing the role of high-quality leadership. They find and nurture other people to become leaders who in turn help to transform the people and organizations they serve. Well, these doctrines form the foundation of a leadership system called the catalyst system that best joins the qualities of individual leaders in the effort of creating organizational excellence. Individual great leaders can improve themselves, and through the demonstration of desired results, they can see this improvement mirrored in the lives of those they lead. When applied in the right type of process, one that matches the simplicity and power of these ideas, leadership based on these doctrines supplies methods of organizing a leadership system throughout any organization. I've had several opportunities to see what happens when the same form of leadership, a fairly simple form, is taught to every leader in every organization, and they begin to operate on the premise that everyone now knows what everyone knows. The visions is easier to communicate, the strategy is understood, allies are organized, there's a method to make changes, and those changes are identified and brought forth, and people start measuring results. It's just incredible. One organization, for example, I work with actually doubled their net profit 3 years in a row using this system or something like it. And others just had their best year ever, so they said. So I've learned that great leaders follow these doctrines in order to implement a system of leadership that everybody can use. And when that happens, remarkable things could take place. So if we looked out into the world and said, do we have enough leaders for what is taking place? And are these leaders the kind of leaders that follow these 8 doctrines? These doctrines will give you the opportunity to evaluate people who want to assume leadership to see whether or not they're the kind of leaders you want to follow.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Do What Matters Most, which is sponsored by firstanswers.com, where you can find new tools for families and parents of 21st century kids with a focus on emotional self-reliance. Visit firstanswers.com to sign up for a free newsletter. Find Do What Matters Most on Facebook and our website, mattersmostmedia.org, where you can ask Dr. Scoresby your own questions. Remember to subscribe to stay up to date with new episodes. Give us a rating and write a review on the podcast app or Google Podcasts, and let us know what you think about Do What Matters Most.